Hey there, friends. Coming at you with another episode of the Pre-Ride Show brought to you by Pure Gravel. We're here on the grounds in Emporia. Payson McElveen joining us, buddy. Good to see you again. What's going on?
Back at the races.
Feels good, huh?
That. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Well, let's talk about that. This is a bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
Cutting back to Stillwater, the bad crash, the subsequent shoulder, collarbone, and wrist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are we feeling?
Bones are feeling good.
Okay.
This hand I discovered goes numb after a few hours, which isn't ideal, but it grips things fine,
Okay.
which is the main thing. Collarbone feels great.
Okay.
Forget that even happened.
Was that a first-timer collarbone for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the club, I guess.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I'm not a member, but I know that's a very exclusive club.
I'm honestly surprised that it took so long.
Right?
But yeah, finally checked that box. Yeah, I mean, it's been a battle, to be totally honest. It's
What was the hardest part? Was it just the not being able to ride or not being able to compete, or?
The collarbone was quick and easy. I had to have this hand in this super annoying brace for about 7 weeks, and just gripping bars was painful and cumbersome, and it was just weeks and weeks of trying to make the most of like 2.5 hour rides, which when you're training for a 10-hour race is a little intimidating and frustrating. But made the most of it, and yeah, things overall have gone well. I had a last training camp in the Santa Monica area that was kind of meant to be the last, like, the icing on the cake of the training, and unfortunately the day I got to training camp I picked up COVID, so instead I sat in an Airbnb just sort of twiddling my thumbs, quarantining.
How frustrating is that?
That wasn't ideal, and because of that I've sort of adjusted expectations for this weekend a bit, but I had a good, solid first race back at Rule of 3 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It went a little better than expected, all things considered, so that was good. But I mean, long story short, I don't have the faintest idea how things are going to go tomorrow. It hasn't been the smoothest spring, but I'm just really excited to be back here, try to get some points on the board for the Grand Prix. And I mean, the truth is a lot of people are having setbacks right now. If you talk to Rose, Cole, the list is pretty long, and I think that's just the way it's going to be.
It's just the inevitability of it being athletic like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way a year-long series goes.
Yeah.
I think no matter the sport. So.
Well, because that's your throwaway race, right? You had to throw away Sea Otter, so now you got to make up points everywhere else.
Yeah, there's no room for error now. But kind of doing some mental math, I think if I can salvage like a top 10 in the Grand Prix at this, that'll
get back into racing.
Yeah, that'll leave me in good shape and like keep me in the fight. So that's kind of the goal number one. But I'm just more than anything excited to get back out there and excited for the race to start. This whole build up, the struggle to sleep the night before, all that, is tough.
Yeah.
But once the gun goes off and you're racing, that's what we live for, and everything will click back into place, and then you'll just be on autopilot doing the thing that's fun.
You mentioned expectations and adjusting them. The mental side to any athletic performance is so critical.
Yep.
How do you personally handle that? Like, are you a journaler? How do you break it down and are able to reassemble it so it makes sense for you in a way that still keeps you competitive?
Yeah, good question. I think some of it weirdly is a similar mindset to what helps you in the middle of a race, which is a sort of like continuing to not give up in a way. And so every time there's a setback, you just adjust, think about the process goals that need to happen to make the most of the situation, and then keep making the most of it and moving forward. And in the scheme of things, like, this was a significant setback, but as a professional cyclist, you can expect even more significant setbacks over the course of your career. So it's all about keeping it in perspective and controlling what you can control.
We've heard that a couple times already. It's like with this race in particular, there's so many variables that you have no control over, but the best you can do is just stay on top of the ones that you can manage.
Exactly.
Do the best you can.
For sure.
So what do you like about it? You've had your chance to look at the course, probably did a little pre-riding. What do you like?
It's heavier than I remember out here, and by that I mean just the rocks and the stones is chunky. It's you hear 200 miles and you think, yeah, that's going to be a big challenge, but I think the distance often overshadows just how rigorous the actual surface is. And there's a whole lot of talk about aerodynamics and fueling and debates about aero bars and all these different things. And at the end of the day, it just is it's just terrain that beats you up over the course of a long day. And there's a lot of really steep, punishing little climbs. And it's just, I think no matter who you are, everyone is out there surviving to an extent at some point during their race. It doesn't matter if you're someone that's contending for the win or just
Everybody's
trying to finish.
Going through it, yep.
So I would say that was the biggest surprise, is how heavy some of the sections were. That said, it feels overall a bit faster and smoother than past years.
Okay.
But even so, yeah, it's going to be, everything will hurt coming into the finish there.
And now we've got this contingent of Euros and the Dutch Mafia and everybody that have seen the fun we're having over here.
Yeah.
And they're now injecting themselves to our scene. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, racing is all about competition, and so more competition.
We're leveling up in a big way.
Yeah, more competition is good in my book, and those guys are nice guys. I actually spent a decent amount of time with them in Bentonville last week. They raced Rule of 3, and we did a couple training rides together and that sort of thing. And the truth is, if a rider, in my experience, if a rider has a genuine interest in gravel racing, and goes to the effort to come all the way over here to do it, they're probably pretty cool people.
Yes.
It just seems to attract good people. So, yeah, I mean, we've got some slight differences of opinion in terms of, getting super crazy in the wind tunnel with aero bars and all that sort of thing, which I'm not really adhering to that ethos of running aero bars. I'm also not 100% convinced that it's faster when you account for all of the just gnarliness of the course that I just mentioned.
Well, yeah.
But that said, I like racing with those guys, and them being on aero bars just means that I have an excuse to not pull through quite as hard.
You're the one that's aero. You can stay out there. Well, and two more. It's not just the Euros. It's a lot of Americans too, coming off the World Tour, retiring in a sense, if you will, and then coming back and jumping in here full time with 10 plus years of World Tour experience in their legs. That's
totally
the bar continues to be leveled up.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys and gals that come from the World Tour, they do have that added depth of fitness from doing week-long or even Grand Tour stage races.
Yeah,
that's something that the rest of us that don't have that World Tour background, really have to work for. But I like to think my interest in some of the ultra stuff, some of the longer distance stuff I do on the side, lends itself to being successful at some of these events like this. So, yeah, hopefully come the deep part of the race when it's really being decided, I'll have some legs to push through.
I'm sure you will. You always do, man. So, can we get a good look at the bike up on the stand?
Yeah, of course. That'd be great.
Let's do that.